Fraction, decimal, percent chart. Today we are going to be going from a fraction to a decimal and then a percent. If you remember, a fraction line can mean two things on your calculator. ABC button if we want to keep the fraction a fraction. And it can also be the division sign whenever we want to convert from one type of number to the next. Since we're converting from a fraction to a decimal, we'll be using the division sign. So in your calculator, you'll put 1 divided by 2. We always divide going down on the numbers. And when you hit the equals button, you'll get 0.5. That is 1/2 as a decimal. Now, to go from decimals to percents, you have to find your decimal. Your decimal is there, and we always move it 2 places to the right because we're going to make a percent, so we move toward the percent sign. Since we have an empty space, we'll have to fill that with our placeholder 0. So now we have 50%. Going down to 2/2, if you recall, any number over itself equals 1. So the decimal for 2/2, if you put 2 divided by 2 into your calculator, you'll get a 1. And if you have everything correct in a test, you have made a 100%. The way you do it with your decimal, you have a decimal here, you move it 2 places, you would fill in your dishes with zeros. Let's look at thirds. Now, when you put in 1 divided by 3 on your calculator, you'll get a very, very long answer, 0.333, and it's going to go on forever and ever. Your calculator will end it at 4 just because it's rounding, but this will be what we call a repeating decimal. It will always have 3's. So now that you have your decimal, we need to turn it into a percent. So we'll find that decimal. We'll always move it 2 places to the right because that's where our percent sign is. And we'll end up with 33.3%. So let's try a few on our own. Well, let's scroll down the page to the eighths. So let's look at the column titled eighths. These are going to be a little bit longer like our thirds were. When we put into the calculator 1 divided by 8, we're going to get 0.125. You do want to keep all 3 of those numbers whenever you write in your decimal. So now that we have our decimal, we will turn it into a percent. We find that decimal. We move it how many places? Always 2. 2 to the right because that's where our percent sign is going to be. So when we rewrite 12.5%, make sure that decimal is nice and big so I can see that whenever I'm scoring them later on. So now let's go ahead and try some on our own. That was fractions to decimals to percents.